Hello,
Hey.
and welcome back to Friends Who Want You to Win.
Yay! Today we're diving into the idea that every emotion has its purpose. Feelings, especially the tough ones like anger, sadness, and anxiety, are signals from your body and your mind.
And actually, they're not bad signals. They are guiding you towards self awareness and personal growth, which you know we love.
Yes. When we take the time to acknowledge and understand our emotions, we gain valuable insights into our needs, boundaries, and desires. Rather than pushing them away, we embrace them as tools for healing and self connection.
And overall, emotions are meant to be felt, not hidden. They are something that helps us understand ourselves to live a healthier, more fulfilled life. So let's jump right in, start talking about some emotional intelligence and how you can use it to help discover your own greatness.
Yes. I'm so glad that we're talking about this topic because I feel like it's so popular and everybody has their own subjective understanding of what
Definitely.
emotional intelligence is, right?
Yes.
But just
So
to
popular and so
clarify,
misunderstood.
right? Like people think that they're emotionally intelligent, but then they're doing the opposite to what is actually benefiting their life. And because it's
Oh,
like their own opinion guiding that. But we'll define it. We'll go through it. We're getting into it. Okay, y'all. Today we're getting
yes.
into it. Yes.
We're always getting
Okay.
into it.
That's a fact. So
You know what's about to happen if you listen further. So let's get into
you
it.
do, you
You know,
do,
you
you
know.
do. We are your friends. Okay, let's talk about it. So we're gonna define emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, understand, manage, and influence emotions both in yourself and others. It's a
Yeah.
crucial skill for personal and professional success because it impacts how we communicate, handle stress, navigate relationships, and make life decisions.
And this is important because it has the word intelligence in it. So I think our minds are programmed to go to a certain reference point about what intelligence looks like.
Yeah.
Something that we were all certainly programmed around when we were little and we were in school and all of that, what intelligence is meant to be. And this is the process of, like you just said, understanding intelligence through the context of emotions. I think
Mm-hmm.
emotions is also a misunderstood concept where people think that being emotional is a negative frame of reference. It's a negative state of
Mm.
mind. And actually, we're all emotional. Equality Education is here to burst your bubble. Everybody's emotional, you guys. You're emotional all day from the moment you wake up to the minute that you go to sleep. You are a bundle of different emotions. And it's all
Mm.
about how you use your skills, like you said, to actually process and understand yourself through the lens of being an emotional creature. So it's unavoidable. Accept it, get over it, move past it, because it's one of the most amazing, beautiful parts of who you are. We are emotional. Let's learn how to be intelligent about it.
Yes. And you know what? I feel like a lot of people have this misunderstanding that if you are emotional intelligent means that you're calm all the time, which is
Oh
not
my gosh,
true.
yes.
It's not
Yes.
true. Like you are having and experiencing the anger, the sadness, the anxiety, the happiness, the joy, but your relationship to how you manage those emotions or understand those emotions just looks differently. Maybe you're not as impulsive. Maybe you're not as like you're not you know, it's so funny. When I think of an emotionally intelligent person, I think of someone who is able to manage and understand their emotions, do something about it, and still make healthy life choices. That's to me, if
Yes.
you can still make healthy life choices, you are emotionally intelligent. Because also, it's not about just being calm, but it's also not just about being positive all the time. It's not just,
Yes.
it's like being emotionally intelligent means recognizing and processing emotions, not suppressing them to appear calm or positive.
Yeah.
Man, I cannot wait to dive into this more because we have to talk about toxic positivity or even the impact of really just stifling and repressing your emotions and how that's not good and that doesn't reflect a person that is practicing emotionally being emotionally intelligent.
And one of the ways I see that, like the stifling, even if it's not outright, it sometimes is
Mm-hmm.
small, incremental over time. Someone else taught you and showed you and role modeled it to you. I see this a lot in men, a lot in women, but particularly in men, is a striving to be emotionless. And this is not to be confused with stoicism, right? Because
No.
that oftentimes can be something that is associated as well, being stoic and being emotionless. But actually, you can you can be calm in the way that you move through your feelings. You can feel your feelings and not be calm at the time. There's all these different ways to go through it. And when you are striving to to appear emotionless, because that's just your external representation of it, is not how y'all are feeling on the inside. We know the truth,
Let's be
right?
for real.
Right? You are really stifling yourself, like you said. You are really,
Mm-hmm.
really blocking yourself from a really normal process of being a human. And it's more about aiming for a healthy expression of that, where you can be full of emotion, but in a way where it doesn't consume you. It doesn't control you. You don't feel out of control when you are overwhelmed with emotion. It's very, very powerful concept.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that we are emphasizing that it's not about being emotionless or being overly positive all the time. Because this is a question for the audience. Have you ever had an experience where you felt pressure to stay calm or positive in a really tough situation and you
Mm,
didn't have the ability to be authentic? When you don't have that safe space to be authentic, you're stifling yourself so much, you're repressing those emotions so much, and they're going to come up in the future again. Because if you don't process it now, you're going to have to process it later. That's why it's important not to run away from your emotions. So like, we don't, the aim isn't to stay calm or positive. The aim is to have your emotions, and as Ariana was saying, to have a healthy expression of it. You
yeah.
want to have a way to express it in a healthy way and allow yourself to be human because we all experience those emotions, girl. Come on, we angry, we sad, we feeling those things, and that sometimes that's what makes life
Normal.
interesting, having those
Yeah.
emotions. It's normal, but it's all about what you do next.
It's finding that middle ground, right? Because you want to feel engaged where you are expressing
Mm-hmm.
yourself, and you don't want to go to the whole other end of the spectrum where you feel like you've lost control and you've hurt someone's feelings and you've done things that you shouldn't have done. And we've all been there and we don't love that. And the pressure to stay calm, you know what this really reminds me of, that I bet everybody can raise their hand for, that they experience, is childhood. How many
Mm.
times was there a situation where your experience, aka your emotions, was invalidated by an adult who was like, that's cool, that's not valid right now, right? And there are certainly healthy boundaries to stay within where a parent needs to be that role model, and you do need to have structure and discipline and that sort of thing. But I feel like I see children's experiences and emotional situations being invalidated so much because it's almost like they're small, so the idea is that their feelings are small.
Mm.
And I'm like, it doesn't
Or,
work that
you
way.
know, actually, I will say adults need to recognize that children are feeling these emotions for the first time. So
Yes.
imagine how much of a big deal that is. Like, imagine for the
Right.
first time, because I think of like when you have like your friendship group and there's some drama in school and you come home and your parents like, don't even worry about that. It doesn't matter. For that moment, that child is feeling such intense emotions from an experience that they're having that you're minimizing. And now you're training that child to realize your feelings don't matter about this, but in a way, instead of helping them find a healthy expression of it. Man, like it's the first time you're feeling angry, first time you're feeling
Right?
sad, first time like, and like imagine you're coming into this new world and these are the first time you're experiencing that emotion. Imagine how much it takes over your body. Just imagine how much it just makes you like, it just, how overwhelming it is, really.
Yeah.
How overwhelming it is. And we're taught to run away from our emotions, but really, feelings are meant to be felt, not hidden. They're meant to be felt. If you teach your child at
Mm.
an early age to actually process through that situation, they're going to be able to do that with bigger circumstances in their life when they're in their adulthood.
Absolutely. And
Mm-hmm.
remind yourself that those, like you're saying, those feelings are big for them. It's what matters to them at the time. It's their
Mm-hmm.
version of their reality. You can look back on elementary and middle school and remember how much it didn't affect the rest of your life. But they do not have that vantage point yet. Like you said, it is exactly what matters for them right now. And instead of invalidating it by telling them to stifle it, get over it, be calm, be positive, whatever it is, we have to go through that process to let them explore it, understand how to work through it, and how to move past it. So important.
The impact of not teaching that child emotional intelligence oftentimes leads to toxic positivity, repressing your emotions, also being they can be addicted to temporary satisfaction, right? So we want to in general avoid those possibilities from happening by guiding the children, guiding ourselves to a healthy expression.
I was gonna wrap all of that up and ask everybody who's listening, what if you gave yourself permission to feel and express your emotions instead of suppressing them? What if you actually
Mm.
allowed yourself to have that space to know that you can have these avenues? We will teach you how we do it because that's what we're here for, right? That's
Hello.
why you're here listening, is because you want to figure out, how do I do that? How do I express my emotions in a
Period.
healthy, in control way and move through it and not hurt the people around me? But we want to give you that permission for you to be able to know that the feelings that you feel are valid, and there is a process for you to move through them in a healthy format where you can not go too much to either side. Like we said, you can not have to stifle them, and you cannot be out of control by them. We can find you that happy median. There's a
We
process.
can.
You can do it.
Yes. Yes. All about you creating that safe space. All about you being reminded feelings are meant to be felt, not hidden. And understanding that
Yes.
your feelings are signals. Sometimes they lead to a deeper truth that you may be avoiding. Sometimes that
So many
anger is
times.
because, yeah, right? It unveils something within you that you've been like repressing or avoiding, or it just honestly, like, feelings are so telling about what's happening internally to an individual.
Absolutely. The
Mm-hmm.
toxic positivity is a big one. I know you mentioned that before.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a context because people are on either side of it, right? We certainly know people who kind of seem naturally, like, you ever see those people and you're just like, how are you so happy all the time? And you
Mm-hmm.
wonder, is this your true expression of yourself? Are you always trying to put that face on because you think that that's what other people want to see from you? I certainly have wondered those things about those people, because I'm like, do you have the other range of feelings, or is it that you feel like you're always supposed to show up in a certain type of way?
Mm, and people really misconstrued toxic positivity and optimistic thinking. They think those are the same.
That's a fact.
They are not the same.
We know that.
They are not, yeah, we know that. They are not the same. Being optimistic is so important to having hope for the future. It's so important to seeing the best out of situations. Toxic positivity is the belief or mindset that encourages people to remain positive at all times, regardless of how difficult or painful a situation may be. It involves dismissing, downplaying negative emotions and experiences by insisting on a constant, overly optimistic outlook, often to the detriment of genuine emotional well being. That's the last part, the detriment of genuine emotional well being.
Yeah.
Toxic positivity is not bettering your life. Optimistic thinking does. It betters your life. It betters your overall perspective of life and understanding that there is hope and resilience, and you're able to create possibilities for yourself. While toxic positivity doesn't allow you to feel the anger, the sadness, the upset. It doesn't allow you or anyone else around you to feel those emotions. And those emotions are so important because they lead to a deeper truth sometimes. Come
And
on.
we're ignoring it and avoiding it if we're being toxically positive all the
Ugh,
time.
ugh.
And the thing about optimistic thinking too is I think it does sound like one of those things where it's like, I don't know about that. It sounds too positive, right? And like you said, it's the idea that someone is able to move through the challenging moments of adversity. They move through with resilience. You move through with you focusing on the things that are going right for you rather than all the things that are going wrong. And that's a element of growth mindset because things are always going to have that balance of what's going right and what's going wrong, and it's all about what are you choosing to motivate and focus yourself around. So it doesn't always have to be, honestly, sometimes optimistic thinking is like I just did the best I could right then, right? It doesn't have to have that toxic positive where it's like, no, everything's okay. It's like, no, that really didn't go how I wanted it to. And I showed up in the most highest capacity that I could in that moment right then. And that's all I can be in control of right now. It doesn't overlook the fact that something is not how you wanted it. You don't feel great. It didn't go the way you needed it to, whatever. It's not dismissive of that. Like you said, it's not downplaying the fact that we're like, I do not love this.
And it prevents you. I love that you bring that up because it prevents you from learning from the situation. It totally
Totally.
prevents you from
Yes.
learning from the
Yes.
situation.
Yes.
I see toxic positivity people in the world, and I'm like, man, you don't allow yourself to get into a space of self awareness. And, and I feel like it's so hurtful for your life and everyone around you. And it's so difficult sometimes when you're speaking to someone that needs to only feel positive all the time because they're not creating space for you because they can't create space for
Hmm.
themselves, which is
Hmm.
really hard to live with. And it's, oh, in a way, it's so funny because it goes back to childhood. It's all about how, what were your community expectations? What were your what did somebody tell you that you needed to act this way all the time? What is your why? Why, if you're somebody that is overly positive and struggles, and I'm saying this from being one of these people prior. I would not allow myself to experience any other emotion. I was happy Soleil. I told you. I was happy Soleil all the time. And I would run away from the negative. And it's just like you need to create that space for yourself. Ask yourself, is it really worth running away from these emotions? I don't think so, but I had to learn that the hard way. Take my testimony. you know?
Right? Right.
Yeah.
There's a way through. We just have to learn
Yes.
about it. Okay, so if
Period.
I'm one of those people who is stuck in toxic positivity because somebody else taught me about it, or I'm that person who is striving to be emotionless because someone else modeled that for me as the thing that I should be looking up to, how do I move into that space of being aware and honest about things that are really comfortable for me to avoid. Because that is what it is. It's like I would rather not deal with that. If I don't show any emotions, I don't have to deal with it. If I'm always happy, I don't have to deal with it, right? And so it is for the purpose of, and sometimes there are things that don't require us to go all the way into it emotionally. Sometimes there are things that are healthy for us to like let it roll off your shoulders and move past it. So if I'm stuck in one of those places, how do I actually identify my own need for awareness and honesty? And how do I identify if the situation's worth it? When I'm so trained in being like, just dismiss it all.
You know what's so funny? I feel like sometimes when you're toxic positive, you get those hard life circumstances, and then they actually can you repress them for so long that one comes and it's overwhelming and you can't anymore, and then you start like attacking people. You start like, you know, you start projecting people. You start projecting on people. You're like that. Like you have that breaking point. I've seen even within myself when I used to practice toxic positivity, moments of when I would break. Like moments where I was like, "Oh, girl, like it's not looking good right now," and the reason that
Mask
I was
slips
toxic,
down.
yeah, definitely. I was like, "Oh, wait, hold on, let me fix myself real quick." It's true, but it's like first things first. You're only practicing toxic positivity again because you haven't had the safe space to express your emotions. You need to
Totally.
start journaling. You need to start speaking to people that you love about what's really happening in your life and how you really feel. This is so important. Like that safe space. I remember like when I would have like breaking points after I was ignoring it for so long, and then it got really bad. I would like talk to Trav, and he would be like, "You need to allow yourself to feel the spectrum of emotions." And I was like, "Ugh, stop talking to
Oh.
me, get out of here, get away from me." But he was right. He was right. I needed to allow myself to feel this spectrum of emotion and ask yourself why. Why don't you allow yourself to feel sadness or anger? Or
Yes. Yes.
like, do you not want to be uncomfortable to other people? That's a big thing. What
What are you
is your
scared
why?
of?
What are you
Yeah.
scared of? So
Yeah.
I knew I was scared. I was freaking out. I was scared. And I know people around me that are toxic positive. And sometimes I want to give them their safe space, but they have to almost let the mask fall for themselves. And that's really
Right.
difficult.
Right. And it
Like,
is a challenge when you start living in that honesty and not
mhm.
avoiding and not trying to glaze it over, because the people around, and I know we all, if it's not the toxic positivity side, I know we all have more old school relatives, whoever they may be, who
Mhm.
are avoidant
Oh,
AF. They're
oh.
like, I don't remember that. Like, we're not going to talk about that.
Yeah.
You're not
I
going to talk about that to
remember.
me. No. So,
Oh.
so we all have those. They all have those people. Here's the thing: when you start practicing this in yourself, you will find the people that you are able to be expressive in this way, and then you will
Mhm.
certainly find the people that it is not worth your time of day. Here
Mhm.
is one thing from two of your friends to another: don't waste your time on the people who this is not for them right now. They might come to it in their own life, but please do not get discouraged on your own process of practicing this and figuring it out because you try to practice with them.
Mm.
Find the people that you can do this with, and they're not going to reinforce these old patterns that you've been stuck in for so long, because some of those people, they will live their whole life that way and they will never come to the realization about the power of the other side of things. And everybody's worth so much more than that, but it's not their time right now and it is yours. So go ahead
It's
and do your thing.
yours.
Yes.
I'm so happy that you mentioned this is just gonna go left really quickly because it is such an important message. But I'm
We love
so
that.
glad you mentioned about like the avoidant situation, the avoidant person in your life that won't talk about, won't have those conversations that are a little bit too sensitive, or won't
Yeah.
have the conversations to help you heal. Like
Yeah.
sometimes those conversations will help you heal. You cannot look outside of yourself for closure. Take that with you forever. Because some people are not willing to have that conversation, and sometimes you'll never have that conversation. And you have to be able to nurture yourself enough to not need that validation from someone else. Unfortunately, if you can have
Yes.
that level of like, if you can have that level of authenticity in those conversations with somebody, that's different. If you have an emotion, if you're talking to somebody that's emotionally intelligent and you're like, I have to bring something up, then that could be a progressive conversation. But if you're talking to an avoidant person that hasn't been there yet, like as Ari was saying, it's a waste of time. You're gonna literally keep hurting
Yeah.
yourself. It's not worth it.
Yeah. And you won't be able to practice, which is what you really need to do. All of this is our skills that take practice. You're not going to be able to bounce anything off of that person. You're not going to get anything back from them. Yes. So do not look for that closure outside of yourself, and find the people that you can practice with. That's 100%. And on the other side of being avoidant and being toxically positive and trying to glaze over all of the things that life brings us that we all need to face and deal with is the opportunity, the option, the amazingness of having that long-term joy and satisfaction about your life. And there's nothing like that. There's nothing that can replace that short-term moment of making the comfortable decision for the long term. By the way, this applies to every area of life, but it's very valid for what we're talking about right now. There's nothing that can replace that satisfaction of that long-term outcome of you having the uncomfortable conversation again and again, doing the thing that you need to for your healing, and then experiencing fulfillment and like actual happiness that is you being pleased with who you are, what your life looks like, regardless of everyone around you. It's like magic land.
Magic.
It's
Magic. And
amazing.
there is such a big difference between long term joy and instant gratification. And that's something that you
Yeah,
need to be so cautious of this day and age. You have to be so
that's a fact.
cautious of instant gratification because it can feel good for a moment. It's like you feel good. It's a reward. It's a pleasure for a moment, often driven by an impulse, offering short lived satisfaction. Long term joy is like, again, as you were saying, making choices that align with your deeper values and goals and have a long term effect in your life. Some people
Yeah,
are looking for joy in the wrong places. You're looking for joy from your phone on social media or your addictions or whatever it may be, and that's not going to progress your life in any way. Absolutely no way.
that's a fact. That is a fact. And the joy, you can experience. Unfortunately, I hate to say this, but unfortunately, a lot of those situations that bring that long-term satisfaction, that bring the joy and the fulfillment in life, are things that in the moment are not going to feel like the comfortable decision. It's the thing that requires the discipline. It's the thing that requires you to step out of your comfort zone. And it's having that moment where you face yourself, you face your feelings, you face the things that you need to heal and move past so you don't get stuck in that emotional state of how you were when that thing happened to you. And that's how you go out and find joy in the long term. But it's not something that you're going to experience right in that moment when you make that tough decision. You can have it afterwards. You can even have a shorter refractory period where you make the good decision and right afterwards you feel good about yourself. But in the beginning, oftentimes, it's very tumultuous and causes a lot of internal conflict. But that means you're on the right path. So that's really great. We so encourage that. We really want to support you in that process.
We
We
really,
love that for
really, really
you.
do. We really do. We love that for you.
Yes. Yes.
So
You
just
can make
going
it
back to
through.
the theme, yes, you can make it theme. You can make it through. Going back to the theme, feelings are meant to be felt, not hidden. I really want to talk about anger, because anger is everybody avoids anger. But I
Right.
think people don't understand its purpose. Anger helps you realize when your boundaries are crossed. You know
Mm,
why this is good? Because a lot of people cannot identify their boundaries. They don't
yeah,
know what their boundaries are. If
for
you are
real.
angry, if you have a moment where you're angry, you need to write down why you were angry and what boundary that was a boundary right there that was crossed. What boundary was crossed? It,
Yeah.
it would be so eye-opening to everybody um,
Yes.
if you did that. Like if you just pause in a moment in the middle of your anger while yelling, you could be like, "Wait, is this a boundary that's
It's a
coming up for
boundary.
me?
This
It's
is
a
a boundary
boundary
for
that's
me.
yes."
Yeah.
So anger can be a blessing. It can be a blessing. Remember, you want to practice emotional intelligence and choose healthy ways to express it. But anger is very
Yes.
telling. It's very telling.
And again, the process that we're teaching you about today is for you to be able to feel that experience of anger, for you to remember, like what you just gave as a tip, Soleil, is to recognize that this means that there's some boundary here for me that I need to look at. And then for you to understand how to process that anger and work it out interpersonally in a way where you don't have to let it like catch you out of pocket. Like you don't have to
Mm-hmm.
get so out of control through your anger that it becomes unproductive. And everybody's able to do this with every emotion, by the way. It just takes practice for you to assert your own self control in the moment that you're actually feeling the feeling. And this is a super master level skill. I was just talking to my girls group that I work with last week about this, where I was like, have you guys ever stayed in control in a moment that you felt overwhelmed by an emotion? It's so powerful. And anger is a really big one because it's consuming. We can see red and then we're like off the deep end and then you've just messed everything up and you have to come back and apologize. But what if you could
Mm-hmm.
move through a really powerful, overwhelming emotional state, remain in control of how you were reacting outwardly the whole time, and not have to come back and apologize for your actions afterwards because you stayed in control of yourself in that emotional moment?
Yeah.
It's like
I mean,
phenomenal.
phenomenal. And you know something about anger? The more that you suppress it, the likelihood that you'll turn red when it finally expresses itself.
Hmm.
Because I remember so
For
much trying
sure.
to express, like, and repress anger, repress it, like, because I didn't want to almost let that version of me out or whatever.
Yeah.
And I, when I would get angry, like, and it was like my cup was all filled up with all this anger from that I've been repressing, I would see red. I would be like, I want to hurt someone the way that I've been hurt. Not physically. I've
Hmm.
never been that type of person, but that's just the way that it was. So if you are a person that just sees red, you have to think about how much anger are you really repressing, and
Yeah.
why are you not, like, it's okay to be angry. If it's okay to, like, it's better to almost acknowledge your anger when it happens and in like smaller moments versus just letting it bottle up and then boom you see red.
Totally.
Like that's a
Totally.
lot better. Just like if you're anger, like express angry, express it.
You can avoid anger in a lot of situations. That's a really great understanding for people to have because I think it seems so far away from what's practical. But the more that you
Mm-hmm.
practice this, I get angry about things at times, but I don't see red anymore. And I spent a lot of years of my life seeing red and feeling totally out of control about how I was expressing that emotion. And that doesn't happen to me ever. I haven't seen red through anger in years,
Mm.
ever. And I'm a very passionate, emotionally expressive woman.
Yeah.
If you guys know me, you know. You're
Period.
gonna know what is happening in my mind. I'm gonna talk about it, but but I'm able to process it in a way where it doesn't consume me because, like you said, like something comes up and we work it out. It doesn't have to get to that boiling point where you're just like overflowing and
Yeah.
ah.
You know what's so funny?
Um,
We're both like, you're a Leo and I'm like a Scorpio, and those
yes.
signs are known to like, don't get them angry, cause don't get
It's
them
gonna be
angry, 'cause
crazy for
it
you.
might be. It's
It's
like
gonna
that,
be
But to all the Leos and Scorpios out there, use this tip, okay? Stop
please.
procrastinating. Let it out, work it through. Don't see red because it's not helpful.
And those of you that know those people who aren't doing this kind of work and who aren't
Mm,
trying to be on the path of growth mindset and personal wellness, you know, it's very apparent. I mean, I really
yeah.
was that person who was not in control of the process at all. So,
Mm.
it certainly, it all takes practice. We're here to practice together. Come
Learn and
on.
grow, right?
If
Learn
we
and
can do it,
grow.
you can do it.
Okay, so if we're
Um,
gonna talk about anger, we have to talk about sadness. Because I feel like
for
that's an emotion that
sure.
everyone avoids.
It's the
Everyone
other.
wants to avoid is sadness.
Yeah. And
It's
sadness can pull you down, 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 down,
what?
all the way down. You
All the
stuck
way
down.
down. All the way down.
All
But
the
yeah,
way.
sadness. Yeah, but I think, it's important. Like sadness, like really does fosters empathy and connection with others. Instead of suppressing sadness, understand it as a way to connect with deeper parts of yourself or with others. There's often a truth underneath your sadness. I say the same thing about anxiety, but we'll dive into that later. But with sadness, can tell you what's wrong, can really give you the signal what's going on and what's wrong, and what do you need to change. I feel like it's a reaction that we have. It could be. I mean, you could be sad for so many reasons too.
Yeah.
You could be sad. Like I, what's so funny? I think of grief too because like when I think of connection with others, like you could be sad from grief. It could be a very really deep experience. But underneath that grief was also a little bit of joy because you're missing something. You're missing someone. You're missing that connection that you have. So it's like a double edged sword because it's like a hard
Hmm.
experience, and underneath that sadness can be so telling.
Absolutely. And I think part of that where when we were saying you can really get pulled into it. I think it's the same with the process of anger where dealing with those moments of sadness, it is a part of life. Everybody gets sad. There's many varying
Many
degrees, many
reasons.
situations that cause it. Dealing with it a piece at a time as it comes up is the thing that helps you not get totally washed over by that wave and where you feel like you can't even come up for a breath because you can't even remember what it used to feel like, right?
Hmm.
And then that sadness, that prolonged state of sadness can turn into depression for people, and then you feel very hopeless and there's no way out. This is the same situation as letting your anger boil over to a boiling point, right? These are all just different emotions that you are experiencing too much of. And then it creates a disposition in you that gets really, really hard to move past because you didn't deal with it a little bit at a time as it came up and it got overwhelming and now you're stuck, right? And one of the things that's really difficult, especially with sadness, is that we are situations in life can become compounded, right? So when we go through anything and we have a feeling that is a reaction to that thing that just happened, your brain imprints that emotional experience at the time that it happened and it associates those feelings with exactly what you were going through in that moment, what was happening, all the smell, the time in your life, the clothes you were wearing, the people you were with, everything. Your brain is very miraculous in that way, but it can be too powerful, right? Because if you don't make the choice to get in charge of that process, it will totally consume you,
Consume
and it will
you.
do what it does, which is compound your sadness, compound your anger, and it will do
Mm-hmm.
it again and again. And it will start in that first moment that you ever felt sad in life, ever, a long, long time ago that you might not even remember, right? And it's like when that next thing that reminds you of that first sadness happens again, it brings more sadness. And then we didn't deal with it because it was uncomfortable and we avoided it, or we tried to be toxic positive to get out of it, or whatever. And then you get sad again, and then it builds more sadness. So it's this same loop that you get stuck in, and doing a little bit at a time, no matter how uncomfortable it is, will help you not get pulled all the way down, down into that dark place.
You know what's so great about everything you said is that I have two things in my mind. Because when you said about like almost like compounding that emotion and how that creates a greater emotion and how that creates that disposition, I'm also thinking about how we talked when I said earlier about sadness fosters connection with others. Oftentimes, when you feel sad, the thing that makes it last into like a depression or like a lasting state is the inability to connect with others, the inability to talk to someone, the inability to like feel hope through your friendships, your support circle. Because I think of like sadness. When I think of sadness, I think of like how much you're vulnerable. You're so vulnerable in sadness. And sometimes like you can create empathy to for other people that have that sadness, but also like you need that moment of support. You need that moment, you need that connection with others, and it's up to us to be okay with vulnerability and be okay with sadness, identify a safe person to talk to so that we can get through it. Like that's such an important part because you don't want to compound it. Because it's crazy even how like what you said about having a moment that triggers all of your past moments. That happens, especially when you don't speak to someone, if you don't deal with your sadness. Sadness can be a very consuming and lonely experience. It's
Lonely,
so lonely.
very
But
lonely.
you have to have the courage to open up to a safe person in order to
Yeah.
really you can be your own superhero. I'm all for that because nobody's coming to save you. But sadness leaves you so vulnerable that maybe you actually do need someone to be a little bit your sidekick to you being the superhero.
And sometimes you just need to let out everything you've been holding in. You feel like you're the only
Period.
one in the whole world who understands what you're going through. And even if nobody else can know what you're going through, sometimes usually it's much better out than in.
It
Even if
is.
it's
It's
just your
much
journal
better.
who's listening.
Yes, so much. Um, so, audience, I want you to think about the last time you experienced a difficult emotion. What was that emotion trying to tell you? How did you handle it? Could you use it as a signal to create positive change? That's such a deep question.
Mm.
I don't think anybody's ever asked me that before. You are? Has anybody asked you that before?
Not like that. Certainly not.
No, no. Like, what was the emotion trying to tell you? Mm, I love that because that's actually gonna go into our next step about anxiety.
Yes.
I once heard someone say to me, anxiety is your ego coming close to the truth. And in my
Mm.
mind, did not want to accept none of that. So I was so confused for so many years about this quote. I was like, what does that even mean? Whatever. Came in
I
the
don't want
ear,
to
out
hear
the
about
other.
that.
Nah, anxiety is your ego coming too close to the truth, man. But when you think
What-
about it, Huh? What were you gonna
What
say?
does it mean to you now? Yeah, you were going to answer. What
Now,
does it mean to you now?
now, your ego kind of guides your defense mechanism. It kind of gets you into denial. It can get you into so many ways that that actually your mind is trying to protect yourself from emotional danger from
Hmm.
the truth that you have inside of you. That was so nauseating to me. I want to vomit. Because like I always was like, man, like what was I hiding from myself? What was I so uncomfortable with that my brain had to create ways for it to protect itself from the truth? And anxiety is such a mind and body experience. So you can almost be consumed by the feeling of anxiety in your brain and your nervous system, everything. You could
100%.
be consumed by it.
100%.
Oh.
100%. I think that's exactly the feeling that people have. I mean, if you have ever felt anxious, if you've ever felt panicky, oftentimes it's like your body responds before your brain can catch up.
Hmm.
I'm already feeling panicky before I even know what's going on, right? And then you're like, "Uh-oh," then your brain kind of catches up to what's going on, but it's totally visceral in the body. Actually, one of the things that I love that I have to credit my dad with, that I
He's gonna
learned
love
about,
that.
yeah, right. That would be his ego coming close to the truth. Oh,
Love
me?
that.
Oh.
What? That's
uh,
it.
is if you guys have ever heard about it, is the polyvagal theory. And this is in relation to what we're talking about here, which is anxiety being an experience between your nervous system and your brain. Like you're saying, you feel it in your body. That's your nervous system having the reaction. And then your brain has the response through processing it as anxiety. And the polyvagal nerve is something that actually connects the brainstem, so up here in the bottom of your brain, and it connects your autonomic nervous system and all of the organs in your body, all of them. And they're connected at that point into the brain, and that's where the signal runs back and forth along this nerve. And what's really interesting about it is that it influences it influences everything. It is
Total.
related all the way back to how you regulated yourself when you were an infant for the first time, when you were having separation anxiety from your mom coming out of the womb. I mean, it goes all the way back and it's programmed at a really young age. And then it affects the way that your whole entire body, because that's your whole system, the organs, the nervous system, and the brain is kind of it. There's a few other things in there, right? But that's kind of the main parts, right? And it regulates how that whole entire system is run and how your body responds to the things that we perceive as a threat, an emotional threat, a physical threat, a threat from something was a threat in the past that we think is still a threat because we haven't gotten over realizing that it shouldn't be a threat anymore. And so we still respond physically through anxiety to the same perceived threat that doesn't even exist anymore. It can really, really trick you and it can overwhelm you. And when we break it down, because we are a quality education, are the thoughts, feelings, actions people. Everything we do is our thoughts, feelings, actions. And the process of this nerve is going from the thinking it to the feeling it to doing it. It is through that brain stem where it's brain connecting to the body. And it's just a key. It is, if you're interested in understanding more about anxiety, emotional regulation, all of these sorts of things, this is the sciencey side of it that will give you a physical understanding of what is happening to me when I have that really, really overwhelming experience of anxiety.
Mm.
Um, and noticing what are the things that it might be something that I actually think is it's your truth. that your mind and your body is perceiving as a threat, right? You can shift that truth. It's not an absolute truth that is your ego coming too close to the truth. It's your ego coming too close to your truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to make that distinction because these are things that you can actually shift your mind around that will then connect through that brainstem, that polyvagal nerve, and will have an effect on how your body reacts in the future. So it's a really, really powerful way for you to get a little bit of understanding and control over that overwhelming experience of anxiety.
I love that breakdown. I honestly love that breakdown because I remember such a big transformative moment in my life where I was feeling so much anxiety. Like it was consuming me. And like I would get like shakes. Like I would like shake, my hands would shake. It was during the pandemic. And like I didn't know where my future was going. It was just like I was having a hard time adapting to change. I was also having a hard time with the big question of who are you? Like, who am
Yes.
I? So I was like, I was having those deep thoughts and I was having anxiety. And what really helped me was actually going for walks. Going for walks really helped.
Love that.
And reading. Someone told me that every time we feel anxiety, read. Now, I want you to
Ooh.
notice the thing about those two actions are they allow the truth to come to the surface. The walking isn't like a mechanism where you're distracting yourself and you're not giving yourself time to think about what's going on. The walking helps regulate your nervous system, helps you breathe for a second, give your mind a break so that you can allow yourself to say, why am I feeling what I am feeling? What is that
Yes.
truth that I'm repressing? Or what is that your truth that I'm believing so much that is causing this reaction within my mind and my body? And when you're reading, I was reading, I mean, self-help books, development brain books, everything like that. I was just like consuming. I was having so much anxiety. I was like consuming books all the time.
You're like, I can
Um, I
read.
can read. And I was reading about emotions and human behavior, and I was going through the going down the rabbit hole.
I remember.
But yeah, I know you were there. And but those things I learned about the body, about human behavior, actually helped me unveil the truth within myself. They were information I needed to learn in order for the truth. Well, not even the truth. What was the thing that I was afraid of coming to the surface, and being able to identify that fear helped me process that this is not really a fear and help me get through it in a
Mm,
healthy way.
wow. That's
Yeah.
super powerful.
I mean, girl, I remember those days. That was really hard, but I'm glad I don't have no anxiety no more. I tell you that. I don't have no anxiety. That was a
But
very hard
that's
moment in my life.
That's so powerful though, because you used a strategy that someone else knew could work. The same thing doesn't work for everybody, right? And you made that. That's the thing about anxiety. When you put that pattern interrupt in, what it does is it gives exactly like you said, it gives your brain a chance to like pull back from what it was being so totally consumed by. It lets you reset. And then you can look at yourself in a broader scope and be like, wait, what was just happening there? So you have to do that physical change for yourself to almost shock your system out of what it was overwhelmed by. Change up whatever it is that you need to do when you are feeling that physical being consumed physically and you figured it out. I think I do talk to a lot of people that will experience anxiety and it can get worse over time, or it can be something they've been dealing with chronically. And sometimes I'll see that it will be related to people having a lot of uncertainty. It
Hmm.
is anxiety inducing. I don't
Hmm.
know something about who I am. I don't know something about the direction I'm headed. I don't know something about my life. And having that lack of clarity and question marks gives people anxiety.
I love that you bring that point because there's something called the diathesis stress theory where you can be more vulnerable to certain to certain things like anxiety, depression, especially if you have like if you have like predispositions in your genes.
Hmm.
Also,
Hmm.
what I took from that theory is, well, somebody told me, especially if you have low self-esteem. I am a big believer, and I could be wrong. This can be not your message if you are listening. But I am a big believer that if you are having anxiety, anxiety and unhealthy self esteem goes hand in hand. In my belief, this is a belief. This is not a fact. I can't write this down as a fact. No. This is just what I've seen in myself when I experience anxiety and what I've seen in other people. Once I started nurturing my self esteem, the anxiety, it actually changed my thoughts, my feelings, and my actions. And the anxiety started to literally not show up in my body anymore, no matter how big the challenge was. So
Wow.
it's so, hey, I love that you bring that up. It's like, to me, it's so hand in hand to have unhealthy self esteem when you have anxiety. Might not be everybody's message. I'm just letting you guys know what worked for me.
And self-esteem can be translated in certain situations into self-doubt, right? So it's
Yes.
not just if do I overall lack the confidence? It might be represented in that particular area of your life by you having doubts about like what is going on, and
What's happening?
it scrambles that part of you, and the body gets out of whack, and we can't regulate it, and it causes a reaction in the brain, and it's a very uncomfortable state to be stuck in or to have it come up again and again and again.
Because you
Absolutely.
have to create peace within yourself. And that ultimately, for me, comes from a person that has healthy self esteem. If you have, like, you have to create peace. Anxiety is not peaceful. Ooh, that is not a peaceful
Oh,
experience. So,
oh,
if you can figure out ways to create peace within yourself, that's gonna really bring that anxiety. And it's a practice. I'm not saying that one day I had anxiety, one day I didn't. I had months where I was walking and reading and exercising and doing what I need to do to to almost deprogram my brain from the response of anxiety. So from
mm,
the idea that I'm the threat, or I had to reprogram my mind from the actually the mind body connection of how it always used to go. I had to deprogram. But that took a while. You have to have that confidence and faith in yourself that I'm going to be like, yo, I'm going to practice this every day.
yes. And you know what's so interesting? I don't want to speak for you, but I certainly have paid a lot of attention in the experience of your own growth transformations that you've gone through. And you can tell me if I'm right. I feel like there were times prior to that where you were stuck in places of sadness, and it had a kind
Yes.
of hopeless feeling to it. And then when you started to look at yourself and question the sadness, that brought the
The
anxiety because
anxiety.
it was like, right? Right? And it's
Thank you
like,
for
and then
reading me, Ari. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. That is a fact.
it's
You're not
real though.
lying.
Like I can think of so many examples of all of us who have had those same exact situations that we've gone through. And it's interesting to connect the dots because we don't do it very often. We're just like trying to make it through to tomorrow. Like we're not out here realizing what was the progression of things. But sometimes it can be you moving into self awareness that causes
Mhm.
that stir up of feelings in us, right? So, a really important,
100%.
yes, yes. And it's like avoiding almost allowed you to feel calmer. You were like, wow, it was great when I didn't have to deal with any of this. And then you're like, what am I doing? But I love that you were vulnerable enough with us to share that example because it shows people that there's a possibility on the other side of it where you don't have to get stuck in that space. You can figure out how to mitigate all of that overwhelm in some capacity. Sometimes it's medication that helps people deal with that. Sometimes it's talk therapy, talk to somebody, whatever it is, but you can move past those, you can move through those situations.
I love that you were able to identify that, Ari, because because as we said before, it was me coming into self-awareness, which is me coming to the
Yeah.
truth.
Yeah.
That was my ego coming to the truth,
That
and the
truth.
reaction was anxiety. Anxiety. So I love that. Yes, I love
Whew.
that. Woo!
And the
Woo!
place that you can start if you want to move into that self awareness place, you can ask yourself a challenge or a fear that has been triggering either you feeling anxious or has been you having a reaction in some other way. Some people don't feel anxiety in the textbook way. They express it differently. But is there something that you have been avoiding? Is there a challenge or a fear that you are avoiding that is causing you to get all mixed up inside? And maybe it is about larger themes in your life and where you're headed. Maybe it's about a relationship or something that you know needs to change, and maybe you've been avoiding it. Maybe,
Mm.
maybe. I'm
Mm-mm-mm.
not saying. I'm
Mm-mm-mm.
just saying maybe.
Maybe. Question mark. Maybe. You have to answer that yourself,
Maybe.
okay? You gotta answer that yourself, okay?
We don't
That's
know.
a
You
fact.
know.
You
You
know.
know.
Yeah,
We don't
you
know.
really do know. You know.
Yes, you
That's the
do.
thing. Your spirit knows. Your heart, your mind, your
Yes.
body, it knows, okay?
Yes.
I love that
Yes.
question. Follow-up question. How
Yes.
could using physical techniques like deep breathing or moving your body help you manage anxiety more effectively? You have to also
Yes.
find your practice. You have to find whatever
Yep.
that is. I know people that do hot yoga literally every week and they're like, I need this. And you have to prioritize yourself enough to be like, this is a non negotiable. This is something I'm
Yeah.
doing. This is what I'm growing, how I'm
Yeah.
dealing with my anxiety, and etc. So once you find that,
Yeah.
let me tell you, I read so many books, y'all. Then I went back to school. I read so many books. I went back to school to read more books. Okay, everybody. So
She
you
read
gotta,
that anxiety right into a degree, you guys.
period. Hello. You gotta, you gotta find what your thing is, y'all. You gotta find what your thing is.
That's
Oh, laughing,
hilarious.
laughing about anxiety. Yes,
Laugh
this
later.
is what we
Right.
do. Have friends who
We
want
could
you to
laugh
run.
later. Right.
Laugh.
Right.
All
Yes.
right. Cool.
So,
Yes.
moving right along from that, that is requires all of the attention that we
Period.
just gave it. Um, Another emotion that I feel like is a big one that people experience throughout their whole life in different varying degrees and are affected by other people around them influencing this is shame.
Mm,
Shame is a really, really big one.
mm.
Shame, there is a role behind shame. There is a reason why we should feel it. It actually helps you reflect on your actions that cause that shame, that feeling of shame, and see how it aligns with your own personal values or the societal expectations of people around you. And that's where we can get tripped up because sometimes the societal expectations are influencing your shame in a way that isn't really super healthy and you need to let go of, but you've been under that societal expectation for so long that you don't realize that like it's not for you to hold on to.
Mm.
It's causing you to feel shame about something that you shouldn't feel shame about. So that's a tricky one. So you have to look at that within yourself because everybody has their own version of that. And expectation and shame are really, really closely tied together. So if someone or something is influencing me with an expectation and I don't live up to that, shame is often the emotion that will follow that process. And it holds you feeling wild guilty. Like the guilt, we cannot escape the guilt that it causes. People will die with this guilt.
You
It's
know,
too
not for
much.
nothing, I'm so glad you brought up the word guilt because I feel like shame. although it has obviously um, negative ideas and connotations with it, there is a difference
Yes.
between shame and guilt. And what I mean by that is like shame is a feeling that arises when we believe there is something wrong with who we are as a person, which is can be self-reflective of those actions, right? It's an internalized emotion, often making us feeling unworthy and flawed. Guilt, on the other hand, is related to the feeling that we have done something wrong or have failed to live up to our values or standards.
Mm,
It's typically action focused rather than self focused, making us feel remorseful for our behavior. I mean, the thing about those are very intense emotions, shame and guilt. And it's like there's pros and there's
follow you.
cons. Yeah, they
Yeah.
follow you and there's pros and there's cons. If you do something shameful to someone, you should feel the impact and almost have enough empathy to be able to identify that that was wrong. And you should feel that so that you never do that again. However,
Right.
when shame and guilt is used as a feeling of for manipulation, then I'm
Intimidation.
like
Yeah.
intimidation, then I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, that needs to
Yeah.
change.
And the thing is, you can feel shameful about something that happened, and you can learn that lesson, and then you can actually let go of that. That is the process, right? That is exactly what we're here to highlight, is for you to be able
Hmm.
to use emotional reactions and feelings that come up as a mirror to hold up and really see yourself in that moment. And then for you to be able to recognize why that feeling happened, not just like, God, I'm so emotional. It's like, what was the feeling? Why did it happen? Where did it come from? And then get to the root cause of that thing so you can create a self adjustment so you can avoid having that same situation happen again. That's the point of feelings. That's the
Yes.
point of emotions. We miss the mark on that. I have to say, us as humans, we miss the mark. We fall into the trap again and again. We do the same thing. It's a pattern thing for us. It's really, we get stuck in the pattern world.
Hmm.
Um, but like you're saying, it really holds a very strong purpose for self awareness. But then you have to use that as a tool to move you past that situation and not get stuck in the guilt for the rest of your life. Please.
100%. And we
Please.
can't let it become internalized. We can't be shameful of who we are. That's not conducive for nobody, especially yourself.
Mm,
It is not conducive for
no.
no one. Don't feel shame for, like, don't feel shame and unworthiness. That doesn't really help any situation. Like you need to
And it's so,
analyzing your actions is different than analyzing like your value. Your value, your value should not be negotiable. It just can't. It shouldn't be negotiable. Period. We can
mm,
learn and all grow, but it's just not negotiable.
mm, that is a fact.
Yes.
Not
Yeah,
negotiable.
not negotiable, not negotiable. So definitely reflect, acknowledge, but move on with courage. As you said before, don't let shame hold you in guilt unnecessarily.
Yeah.
And I think the big question is, think of a time when you felt ashamed. Did you use it as an opportunity for self-reflection, or did you hold back?
Mm,
Mm.
yep. 100%. And Ed's going to
Everyone
have a
has had
couple
a moment like
examples.
that.
Right. Ed's going to have a
What?
few. You're going to think of a few things, you guys. You're
It's like everyone
going to
had a
have a
moment
few.
where they held back. Everyone had a moment where they went into self-reflection. Everybody had a moment where they were like, let me just not,
Yeah.
and held it back.
Yep. And what ripple effect did that cause in your life? And are you still dealing with that?
Because you know it does. Because you know
It
it
really
does.
does. It
The
really
what?
does.
Mm.
So, in all of these areas, and by the way, these are only a few feelings. You guys who are listening can certainly think of probably 10 more that you have experienced today or this week or
Mm-hmm.
that you watched someone else go through. that we didn't mention here. These are the big ones that are really very consuming. And on the other side of this, a lot of these were kind of heavier in nature. But I have seen so many people who will stifle their light and their joy and their happiness because they want to match other people who are sad around them. And that
Mm.
that that process breaks my heart as well. So there is a really really important aspect of having people who are supportive of you being in this process, because as you stop letting yourself get totally consumed by your anger, you'll still have interactions with people who want to get to that place with you. And when you are like, actually, I'm good, they're going to not really have a very easy time dealing with that. So, what we want to do is have people around who are supportive of you moving through your emotions in a healthy way, processing them, healing them, doing it together so you guys create patterns where you can not be stuck in those really, really uncomfortable places and you can experience more long term satisfaction and joy overall.
100%. I mean, birds of a
Listen,
feather flock together, right? So, I mean,
yes.
you be able to identify the overall tone of your friendship group or the overall tone of the
Yeah.
company that you keep. And oftentimes that has an impact on your emotions and your emotional intelligence, because how many times have you had an emotion off of a situation that was really like really hurting your heart or really like confusing your mind? You go to your friend about it, and they have unhealthy advice for you because they
Yeah.
themselves are not practicing emotional intelligence. You have to be able to identify the people around you and say, are they practicing emotional intelligence? And do I actually want their advice?
Yeah.
Like, do I actually,
Exactly.
like, what, man?
You know
I've
those
heard some
people
crazy
too.
stories.
Right.
Yes.
This reminds me of a phrase that we're all familiar with: misery loves company.
Period.
Oof.
Period. And when that
Oof.
friend group, and when that misery friend wants you to feel miserable, that advice sucks. That advice is
For real.
horrific.
But
It
it's
can be
not coming
horrible.
from a place that you're not looking to work things through in a way where our goal is to feel better. Because if
Mm-hmm.
I'm stuck in misery, that's never my goal. I'm never focused on that being the outcome. I don't even know how to start going about it. I've never practiced it. I'm unfamiliar. And
Hmm.
so I'm not even a good partner for you to come and try to go through this process with, because while you're learning, you're going to have to teach me, right? And there will be people that you open up to in this way and they're receptive to it and you guys can learn with each other. But both of you have to be equal partners in it. It can't be you trying to pull those people up, because I know, Soleil, I know you've been there. I know I've been there. It is a dead end road. You will break your arm muscles trying to pull those people. They're going to be stuck all the way down
Mm-mm.
there.
Mm-mm.
So
I'm
do
so
yourself
not
a
with that.
favor, go and
Mm-mm.
attract new people who are on that same vibration instead of trying to change the people around you, because that's just not your job, boo.
Because you're not a rescuer. You are not the superhero. As much as we have
Exactly.
supporters in our life, we ultimately choose where our life is going. We are our own
Yes.
superheroes. I'm not saying that it doesn't take a team, because it does. There is times, where the Avengers must come together to fight the common enemy, and Iron Man is not going to fight Thanos alone. Okay, there are times where
Right.
you need that level of support, but ultimately you are just there for support. You cannot rescue somebody. You cannot be their superhero.
Yep.
That does
Yep.
not work. It's like I don't like that, and I also don't like judgmental people. Like people that
Mm.
can't give you a safe space because they're too busy judging you. That is not your friend. I That's like one of those like making me nauseous again. It's making me nauseous. It's making me nauseous. All of it is making me nauseous.
So
Yeah.
to not be nauseous, the question that you guys can ask yourself is, how can you cultivate relationships with people who give you that space to be emotionally authentic? How can I be somebody who figures out how to feel my feels, how to process my feels, how to heal around my feels, and move past my feels, right? Because we're all going to feel the feels. So we got to figure out a way to do it together where you hold space for me and I will hold space for you. And we're not going to show up perfect all the time. It is a practice. We will say that as many times as we need to. It's about practice.
Period. It's really like it's okay to lean on your circle during emotional times, but it's important that they don't shame or judge you for that feeling.
Hmm. Absolutely. So see if you got people around you. If the people around you got to upgrade the circle, we suggest it. Come talk to us. Whatever you got to do.
Period. And if your circle
We
looking
want to hear
good, you
about it.
better value that. If your
You
circle
better
looking
process
good,
those emotions.
period. You gotta hold yourself accountable to be in that circle. Also, you gotta.
Exactly.
You know what's so funny when you have a friend that practices emotional intelligence, you can't come to them with toxic,
Anything less.
craziness. I'm not saying that you can't come to them with this situation. Of course, you want to feel safe, but be prepared to be held that mirror. Be prepared to have a safe space, get comfortable, etc., etc. But also be prepared for the truth. Your friends that want you
Yes.
to win will tell you the truth.
Yes.
Period.
And people who practice that together, they will not let you get away with it, right? So like you said, we could go through whatever you got going on, but one of the things that I see in people, in circles of people who are practicing emotional intelligence, we're not going to talk about the same thing again and again that you're not
Mm-mm.
dealing with. I'm not going to do that with you because that's what I moved out of. I moved away from the people that couldn't process the patterns that were really being self-destructive towards themselves, right? I will hold you accountable. If you can't deal with the truth and you can't deal with the self-awareness that you need to take on to create your own healing, the relationship will not be one that can move forward on both sides. Like we said, you practicing this stuff, it will become apparent the people that can keep up with that and the people that you need to realign yourself with.
100%.
It's always worth it.
100%.
It's so worth
Always.
it though.
Always.
Always.
Yes, always. So
So
analyze your
as we
support
do,
system. As we do, we're going to give you a 5-step process for developing
yes,
emotional intelligence. And step
yes,
numero uno is always the word self-awareness. Self-awareness. Recognize and understand your emotion as they arise. Do not repress. Do not run away. Do not practice toxic positivity. Your emotions are there. We're looking at our emotions. We're looking at it, we're dissecting it, we're seeing what's underneath it, all of that, okay? So, you want to notice the physical signs of reacting to an emotion, name and reflect on the emotion and its trigger. What is the trigger that is setting off that emotion? What am
yes,
I feeling? Ask yourself, what am I feeling and why?
yes.
Why?
That's gonna give y'all so many answers. I don't even know if you need the next 4 steps, but definitely start there.
You got that one?
What am I
That,
feeling and why?
yeah.
Yes. The next step is the one that takes really the practice is the actual process of emotional regulation. The biggest thing that will change your life, I'm telling you right now, everybody listen, open your ears. Pause before you react. Pause before you react. Pause before you
Pause.
speak. Pause before you run away. Pause before you burst out in
Pause.
anger. Pause before you hurt someone's
Pause.
feelings.
You know what it reminds me of? Just because you think it doesn't mean you have to do it. Like,
Yes. A quality education quotation knowledge for you guys. Just because you
pause.
think it doesn't mean you have to do it. You could start to have the feeling inside of you, but it's all about how you process your internal into your external that creates
Mhm.
emotional regulation. Pause. Breathe after you pause. that's going to make it even better.
Oh, you're setting them off, Ari. Setting them
Pause
off.
and then breathe. Pause again and then breathe again. It's going to change your life, you guys. Anybody who pause and breathe, come back and tell me so I can say I told you so. Anyways.
I can't. Laughing from anxiety, laughing from pausing and breathing. What are we doing,
real.
Ari?
It's real. Because it's all the truth. This is nothing but the truth. Acknowledging those emotions and choosing a constructive response. So it's, like I said, it's how you process what immediately happens internally and then how you express that externally. And doing that again and again, because it will take a lot of refining. You can ask yourself, how can I respond in a way that reflects my best self? So is me having this burst of anger, is that my best self? Could I process it differently after I pause and I breathe and I realize, should I say that thing? Should I act this way? Is there a different way of reacting? There's actually a video. I've seen it a couple of times. It's popped up on my social. It's really funny. And it's just a clip of this woman. We should play it here. But it's just a clip of this woman and she's with two other people like on stage. And she's having, she goes into an emotional reaction. She's like, did you see what she did? You guys are going to let her get away with. Wait, I can deal with this. I'm okay. I'm an adult. Like literally.
Oh, wow.
She like, it's so funny to me because she interrupts herself out loud, but it's exactly that. Like she
really
practiced
is.
emotional regulation. She pulled it all the way back. And if it happens out loud at first, that's totally fine. Just go
That's
through the
cool.
process. And she was like, wait, this was not my best self. And she's like, okay, never mind. I'm fine. I'm
Wow.
fine.
That's step 1 and step 2. Y'all got some work ahead of you, okay?
You're right.
We got 3 more steps to go. Step number 3, use emotions. It's actually about motivation. Step number 3 is about motivation. Use emotions to drive positive actions. Understand what your emotions are telling you. Now, here's the deal.
Wow.
I love that it says use emotions to drive positive actions because I am tired of people getting angry and then ending up in jail because they did something crazy. No, because they did something crazy. It's like, man, you gave away your entire life because you got angry and now you're in a situation that is extremely uncomfortable. And it's like, man, like you had another
Option.
choice. You have to use your emotions to drive positive actions. Be motivated to do so. So, and then understand what your emotions are telling you. So look further deeper in your mind. Think about that truth that you have in your mind and give yourself the safe space to actually unveil that within yourself. Because once you know the truth and once it reveals itself after you've done the emotional regulation, you can confront it and do something about it. Mm-hmm. And this will create long-term joy. This will create long-term joy when you actually go and you do that deep dive and you're like, man, this is what I've been feeling. This is what I've been avoiding. You can create long-term joy. And if you hear my dog in the background, she's creating it right now. Period. He felt that. Not instant gratification. We don't need you to be happy just because you're scrolling, happy because this, be happy because of that. We want you to have joy. Should almost feel like a personality trait. It should almost be so instilled inside of you that you know how to create your own joy. You're motivated to create your own joy. You're motivated to create your positive actions after you feel negative emotions. You're motivated to do that. So I want you to ask yourself, how can I use this emotion to move forward positively? I love that question.
That's a great question.
Love it. Come on.
It will give you a lot of clarity about yourself.
Come on.
A lot. Absolutely.
You know.
Step number 4 is for you to practice empathy So this comes after we've done the self-awareness and you've tried to understand yourself a little deeper and go through the process of regulating your own emotional reaction. You come to a place where you can understand where someone else is coming from, right? You pay attention to things like body language, nonverbal cues that you are getting from that person. Practice active listening and understanding a different point of view that might not be in line with how you're feeling right in that moment. And it'll really open your eyes and it will also deepen your relationship with people. There's so much that we can pick up on. Even what I see in relationships with people a lot of times is we'll ignore those nonverbal cues because we just kind of don't want to deal with it, right?
Mm.
And those sorts of things build into resentment between each other because we never talked about it and we never dealt with the uncomfortable feelings that we're having. So, for you to tune into where someone else is coming from and let go of the need to be right, it will be something that really creates a depth and vulnerability between the two of you that's really, really satisfying and very, very much worth the discomfort that you have to initially deal with to get there. So the question is, what is that person feeling and how can I support them? You're stepping into their world. You're getting out of your self-importance and you are showing them how important they are to you. It's very powerful.
Love, love, love that part.
Step
I feel
four.
like sometimes we're so focused on us and how we feel
Right.
and everything, and we're not focused on like other people. We're not focused on how it might land on them or how it like
Yes.
if how your emotions and your words and your body language affected them in that moment. So I love
Yes.
step 4, empathy. Come on, that's gonna help you. And for our last and final step, social skills. Build strong relationships and communicate clearly. Communicate clearly is
Mm.
the big one because the first thing I want you to do is use I statements to express your emotions. And
That's
the
a good
reason
one.
why is because using I statements is a communication technique that focuses on expressing your feelings, thoughts, and experiences in a way that takes responsibility for them. In a
Mm.
way that takes responsibility for them without blaming or accusing others. We're so used to saying, you made me feel angry. You made me feel this way. You. I want you to turn that around and take responsibility and say, I feel angry.
Yes.
I feel this way. I. When you let go of when you let go of that responsibility and you're giving it to someone else, it's like almost like an unfair game. It's like it's an
Yeah.
unfair game. It's like
Yeah.
come on, like are you serious? We do impact others, but at the end of the day, your feelings are an internal experience that you are experiencing and it's your
Responsible for.
responsibility. Yeah, you're responsible and it's your responsibility to communicate effectively for a solution to actually happen. So definitely use I statements and work toward empathetic conflict resolution. Empathetic conflict resolution does not look like you blowing up, the other person blowing up, and not caring about each other's feelings. No, empathetic is being aware of your feelings and being aware of their feelings as well while you have a
Mhm.
conflict. It is possible. If you're more aware of their feelings, you actually handle the communication with respect. You handle it
Mm.
in a way where it's like, I want to communicate to you what I feel without making you feel like the bad guy. I want you to understand me, but I don't want you to feel like the bad guy because it's not conducive to growth. It's not. So I want you to ask yourself, how can we create a safe space for open expression?
That's next level.
Come on. How can we create
This is
a
the
safe
master.
space for open
These skills
expression?
move
This is
like this.
period.
We're moving up the ladder because that's the top of the ladder right there.
That's the top of the ladder.
Get
Open
your social skills up.
expression? How
Yeah.
many people can you say in your life that you have open expression with, Ari? Like, oh, I can express myself 150% and know that I'm safe here.
Yes.
That's different.
Practice.
Practice.
Practice today.
Practice
So we have
today.
step 1, self-awareness, step 2, emotional regulation, then you go to motivation, what drives your actions, empathy, and then social skills, that open expression, sharing it with others. So we start with ourselves, we process all of that, what's going on, and then we figure out how to bring other people into the mix and have everybody be a part of our positive, healthy, emotional expression of who we truly are. Doesn't that sound nice?
Sounds
For the purpose
lovely.
of long-term satisfaction and joy.
Yes. I love that. Love this episode.
And while you are expressing yourself, we would love to give you our final reminder that we always tell you at Equality Education. In your moment of self-expression, which means you are also being self-reflective, self-reflective does not equal self-criticism. Tell them, Soleil.
Self-reflection does not equal self-criticism. Stop being your own bully while we're learning and growing. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. We can't do that, y'all. We cannot.
Allow yourself to understand that you are an emotional creature no matter what. It's okay. Deal with it. What we're here to do is to utilize this 5-step process for you to move through those emotions that are bound to happen, no matter you avoid them or you try to move past them or try to make them something that they're not. It doesn't matter. They're going to happen anyways. So use this process for you to get in front of it and for you to feel good about who you are and being in control of those situations when they come up.
Yes, and remember, we're friends who want you to win. So it's always a safe space over here. Okay? I never want you to doubt that. It's a safe space over here with friends who want you to win. And we're learning and we're growing together, period.
Yes. See you next time.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Friends Who Want You to Win, where we give you the everyday advice that you need to boost your self-confidence, build meaningful relationships, how to stop self-sabotage, and so much more.
Yes, but your story doesn't end here. If you are ready to break free from old patterns, step into your greatness, and take control of your life, our monthly membership is your next move.
Inside, you'll find life-changing tools, live expert guidance, and a community dedicated to supporting you to unlock your full potential.
So don't let fear or doubt hold you back. Reach out today for more info on why joining us will be the best decision you have ever made for yourself. Your greatness is waiting. Let's discover it together.
For more information on how to join, get in touch with us at www.theequalityeducation.com.